from that point onwards, money comes into existence. And this is how modern day money comes into existence. Money comes to existence when someone wants to take on a debt. Most of money comes into existence through what is known as bank credit. We go to banks, and the banks literally type in what we consider money, and it comes into existence in light of someone willing to pay back more. In other words, there is never enough money in the economy at one point. If everyone was to settle their debts, the whole economy would collapse. This more that has to be paid back introduces what's known as scarcity. Scarcity is the opposite to what you're saying. Scarcity is like there's never enough money for anyone, right? So I have to compete. Instead of being a collaborative framework, a compassionate framework, I'm brought into a framework where it's some people have to go down for some people to win. And so straight away, riba polarizes the economy between the haves and the have-nots. And usually the haves are the ones who possess most of the money to start off with. And so this polarization of wealth is a feature of riba. Whereas zakat, although we're not saying the system is everyone has to be completely the same, but zakat neutralizes this polarization and makes sure that the have-nots are never so far away, right? So that's one thing, this scarcity. Another thing is that this produces an accompanying, because the more money that comes into existence always will come with this accompanying interest debt. This sets a paradigm where we're constantly growing just to survive. Because if we don't grow, there's not enough money and the whole economy will collapse. And so this is what someone by the name of Edward Abbey called the logic of interest. So he basically said, growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. And this is the analogy of usury. If I was to take your analogy of riba, of zakat, it's a holistic growth. You're allowing for growth to happen, but you might need to cut your hair sometimes. You might need to trim your nails, right? You might need to do yourself up. And you're growing ultimately in a way that's transcendent, right? The physicality, everything will perish. But what grows is your soul, right? In terms of that closeness to God, that luminosity. The growth of riba is a cannibalistic growth because the more of this money that's coming to existence, the more it's now divorced from real economy because there's so much of these digits now being produced that these digits have to find something in this economy that can be bought and sell. So it literally cannibalizes the economy. It literally necessitates that we have to cause deforestation. It literally necessitates that we have to deplete the fishes. It literally necessitates that we commodify and commercialize this wealth. And more importantly, it goes back to that community dynamic. It necessitates that everything you and me do has to be for a price. That's why many of these traditions that you're talking about, such as teaching, which was, zakat went side by side with another remit, which was on the same spirit, which is awqaf, right? Us taking responsibility for ourselves and ensuring that our people are provided for. But this riba separates this. And so if I was to boil it down, I would say one is cancerous growth. Riba is cancerous growth that ultimately, while it's growing for the sake of growing, the cancer cell is the only thing that grows for the sake of growth. And our financial economy needs growth to survive. But just as the cancer cell ultimately cannibalizes its own host, it causes the death of the organism in which it survives, riba and our financial economy will ultimately destroy us all. It's already causing the environmental crisis, but we're just waiting for that day when this phantom economy will collapse. And then what's going to happen after that? So I think the take home from this is that these paradigms have to really be explored. And we have to enter into that consciousness of what the Quran is calling us to in zakat, right? Taking ownership for the people that Allah has brought around us. Taking ownership for the institutions that are in our local vicinity, right? That was a bit of a long talk from yourself. Do you want to touch upon something? We've got a few questions.
No, it was very, very good. I think I just want to jump into also, because obviously what I know about riba a lot is from what you've helped me read up on, and you very kindly came and gave a lecture to our students on this last year. What I found so powerful and so interesting was that, at the end of, our conversations, I realized that it felt like we're in some kind of science fiction movie where, you know, in the science fiction movies, the idea is that the machines have taken over. We built them for our advantage.
Right.
Now they've taken over, and now human life is at threat, and we're panicking, and we're trying to survive under the order of this mindless, humanless logic that we've created. And it seems that the modern economy and the modern corporation, which you also hinted at, is exactly such an idea. We've kind of created something which has its own mind, its own logic, and it's become our Lord. And there's nothing that we can conceive of, even how we relate to our children, even the forms of education we want to give them, even the kind of life we're preparing them for, except that they should feed the machine. All of us are just slaves to this mindless, humanless logic, and there's no way we can conceive of existence other than, oh my God, how do we keep feeding the machine? Because we don't think there is a life anymore outside of it. And so it's just interesting idea of absolute slavehood now to not a person anymore. There's no one per priest. If you were to remove them, then the thing goes. There's this God, there's the high priest of the God, which are your financial institutions, and we're everybody else trying to make sure we don't upset the high priests, because we know that our very breaths are tied to the life that they've gifted to us. It's like a very odd sort of science fiction, weird religion kind of thing going on, is what I realized after our conversations on this, you know, in the past. And also, yeah, what I found most striking was, again, how hidden this discourse is from everyone. So when we talk about saving the environment, when we talk about saving trees, when we talk about everything with, you know, saving the animals, always pitched as if we don't love the environment enough. If we loved it enough, we would take care of it.
Right.
I think it conveniently avoids this question that human beings, to survive, have to destroy the environment, because
I wouldn't say
that's what the debt is forcing upon them. There's no food on your table unless you can monetize the trees. There's
I wouldn't say human beings to survive. I would say the story that we've allowed. Because I think even now we could redesign money. And when people say money is the root of all evil, it's not money. It's the story we've allowed in money. We forget modern day money, especially bank credit, is not how money functioned before 1694. There was never an idea of money coming to existence as a debt-based IOU, and our FIC books don't account for this, with more to be paid back in the form of riba. This is the institutionalization, and I know we haven't touched on how this happens, maybe another talk would be required, of riba itself. This is an allusion to the Prophet saying that towards the end of the time, towards the end of times, we'll all be covered in the either, you know, the ghubar of riba, effectively, the dust of riba. Those who don't deal with it will be covered in it, because it is literally like dust. It has co-opted all of our institutions. But then if we understand that, then we understand why Allah said, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Because usury or riba is literally that which has set up a paradigm, in the word of Thomas Hobbes, of war of all against all, in pursuit of allowing this system to go on, a system that requires perpetual growth of money for the economy to survive, whose ultimate beneficiaries, let's be real about this, is an increasingly receding elite, right? Global poverty is not being alleviated by this. The trickle-down theory never really works, right, in practice, empirically. When we look at most of the people, there is an increasingly receding elite. I think there was something about, if you took 80 people or something and put them in a double-decker bus, they'll have more wealth than half of the world's population, right? But this is the paradigm that we have, and you're right, most of us are not aware of it. And the contrast is so stark with what zakat is trying to enable us to do.